A notification chimes. A piece of glass and metal lights up on a bedside table, breaking the silence of a dark room. Someone you haven't spoken to in 7 years just uploaded a meticulously curated image of a private cabana in Tulum. They are holding a $20 cocktail, smiling with perfect, artificially whitened teeth, projecting an aura of absolute financial liberation. But the camera lens is carefully angled to crop out reality. It doesn't capture the 36% annual percentage rate on the travel rewards credit card used to artificially fund that exact moment. It doesn't show the knot of acute anxiety tightening in their stomach as the closing date on their billing cycle inches closer. And it certainly doesn't reveal the crushing, quiet desperation of the Monday morning corporate commute they will inevitably return to in exactly 48 hours. There is a strange, highly contagious psychological virus infecting the modern middle class, and it operates under a very simple, destructive premise. If a personal achievement, a vacation, or a Tuesday night dinner isn't documented, aggressively filtered, and broadcasted to an audience of entirely indifferent strangers, the experience essentially never happened. We have fundamentally outsourced our sense of self-worth to a cold, mathematical algorithm designed by engineers who don't know you, who don't care about you, and whose entire corporate business model relies on keeping you perpetually insecure. You see the symptoms of this disease everywhere. The couple screaming at each other in a restaurant parking lot, only to embrace and smile the second the front-facing camera is activated. The guy financing a $70,000 luxury SUV while his checking account hovers precariously close to an overdraft fee, purely so he can casually post a photo with the steering wheel logo in the background. This isn't just harmless vanity. It is an economic tragedy disguised as social connection. These individuals are exactly what the system loves most, the premium broke. They are consumers who eagerly bleed their own finite resources, their irreplaceable time, their daily energy, their future liquidity, just to maintain a digital hologram of success. They act as loyal, unpaid employees for trillion-dollar tech conglomerates, willingly sacrificing their peace of mind to generate free marketing material. They trade true, quiet autonomy for the fleeting, hollow dopamine hit of a digital heart icon. Burn this into your brain. The people who actually hold the strings of this society, the financial architects, the institutional investors, the individuals quietly accumulating generational wealth, they never perform for the crowd. They operate as absolute ghosts. They don't feel a compulsive, desperate need to prove their purchasing power to an audience of forgotten high school acquaintances and random coworkers. They understand a brutal, foundational truth about human nature. The loudest person in the room is always the weakest. The one who desperately needs you to know they are winning is usually the one silently drowning in liabilities. Every single time you feel that uncontrollable urge to pull out your phone and document your meal, your weekend, or your newly purchased depreciating asset, you are willingly stepping into a behavioral cage. You are offering up your psychological profile on a silver platter to corporations that will turn around and use that exact data to sell you more things you don't need, using money you haven't even earned yet. You swallow the bait, genuinely believing you are building a personal brand, completely oblivious to the fact that you are just another lab rat running to the point of exhaustion on a high-definition, backlit wheel. But the most dangerous part of this entire phenomenon isn't the immediate financial hemorrhage. The real damage is entirely invisible, buried deep within your cognitive processing. The rare individuals who never post on social media operate on a completely different psychological frequency. They have quietly opted out of the digital circus protecting their attention like an unbreachable fortress. And once you understand the exact mechanical framework of how they think, and why their intentional silence gives them an unfair, predatory advantage over the rest of the oblivious population, you will suddenly realize exactly how much of your own mind has been hijacked without your permission. The architecture of social media wasn't designed for human connection. That's the comforting lie on the press release. These platforms were engineered by behavioral psychologists to function as digital slot machines, turning your human need for tribal belonging into an extractable resource. True poverty in the 21st century is not just a lack of capital. It is the absolute inability to exist in a silent room without an audience. When you curate your weekend for public consumption, you aren't sharing. You are submitting a status report to a system that grades your existence based on how much envy you can generate. You spend 30 minutes agonizing over a filter, trying to make a mediocre brunch look like a luxury magazine. And while you stage your food, tech conglomerates harvest your geolocation and psychological vulnerabilities. You are running on a high-definition wheel, frantically chasing the synthetic cheese of a push notification, completely unaware that you built the cage yourself. Phase 1. The unpaid digital employee. Think about the sheer absurdity of the transaction. You buy a $1,000 smartphone on a financing plan. You pay a monthly data premium. You spend your finite weekend hours capturing, editing, and distributing high-resolution content. You do all the heavy lifting, and the algorithm monetizes your effort by sandwiching your carefully staged vacation photo between targeted ads for things you can't afford. You're a free laborer for a trillion-dollar machine. Your compensation? A temporary spike in brain chemistry, a fleeting illusion that your life matches the highlights reel you just forced upon the internet. This invisible labor drains your cognitive bandwidth. The people who never post operate with a lethal level of focus because their mental RAM isn't consumed by the anxiety of public perception. They experience reality in the first person, not through a 6-inch viewfinder. But the system doesn't want you present. The system needs you anxious, distracted, and constantly comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's aggressively edited opening night. Because when you feel inadequate, you consume. You swipe the plastic to bridge the agonizing gap between who you actually are and who the algorithm makes you feel you should be. Phase 2. The dopamine debt cycle. This is where the psychological trap becomes a financial reality. The exhaustion of your 40-hour work week leaves your defenses lowered. You clock out, completely drained, and open the app. The algorithm, the true face of the modern enemy, doesn't show you reality. It shows you an optimized hallucination. You see the 20-something influencer unboxing a designer bag. You see your coworker at a 5-star resort you know they can't afford. The algorithm weaponizes your exhaustion and turns it into inadequacy. So you engage in retail therapy. You buy the exact lifestyle props required to signal to the digital tribe that you are not falling behind. A memory that requires digital validation to feel authentic is not a memory. It is a calculated performance. And performances require a budget. You are bleeding your future liquidity dry to fund a theatrical production for an audience of scrolling zombies who forget your post 3 seconds after they double tap it. When the dopamine wears off and the statement arrives, the platform won't help you pay the 24% interest rate on the life you faked. The cost is devastating. And when you calculate the exact, irrefutable math of what this artificial existence is stealing from you, Phase 3, the opportunity cost of ego. Let's strip away the emotion and look at the brutal, freezing cold math of the digital flex. Society has normalized the concept of treating yourself for the camera. You book the boutique hotel. You buy the $500 sneakers. You order the ridiculous dry ice cocktail. Let's conservatively estimate that maintaining this baseline aesthetic, the dinners, the weekend trips, the updated wardrobe required to avoid repeating outfits online, costs you an extra $1,200 a month. That doesn't sound catastrophic, right? It's just the cost of modern socialization. Now let's run those numbers through the actual machinery of wealth. If you took that exact same $1,200 and instead of using it to fund a theatrical production for your followers, you dropped it into a basic, unsexy S&P 500 index fund. If you simply walked away and let it sit there, compounding at an average historic 8% for 25 years, that money grows to $1.1 million. You didn't just buy a few nice weekends. You voluntarily handed over $1 million empire. You traded generational security for a temporary spike in pixels on a screen. Poverty is no longer an accident of circumstance for the middle class. In the digital age, poverty is the mathematical consequence of prioritizing a stranger's perception over your own balance sheet. You are literally financing your own enslavement. The banks and credit card companies understand this perfectly. They know that human vanity is the most reliable, infinitely renewable resource on the planet. They lay out the shiny, premium metal cards like bait in a maze. You see the cheese of social elevation. You swipe the plastic, and the heavy metal door snaps shut behind you. You get the momentary high of the notification, and they get 30 years of your physical labor to pay off the compound interest of your insecurity. But the financial bleeding is just the surface level of this disease. The real theft is happening inside your skull. Phase 4. The invisible tax of envy. Every time you document your life, you are paying a heavy cognitive tax. You sit down at a Michelin star restaurant. The food arrives. A normal human being operating in reality experiences the aroma, the taste, the conversation with the person sitting across from them. But you enter a state of directorial panic. You rearrange the plates. You tell your partner to freeze. You adjust the contrast. You upload the file, and then, for the next 2 hours, you aren't at the restaurant anymore. Your physical body is sitting in a chair, but your consciousness is trapped inside a server farm, constantly refreshing the screen to see how many people acknowledge your existence. You paid $300 for a meal you never actually tasted. This is the ultimate tragedy of the hyper-visible life. You suffer from a digital sunk cost fallacy. You have spent 5 years building this curated avatar, and now you feel a crushing obligation to keep feeding it. If you stop posting the luxury experiences, the algorithm will bury you, and the tribe might assume you failed. So you double down. You take on a personal loan to fund a trip to Mykonos. You rent a boat for exactly 3 hours, exclusively to secure a profile picture that screams absolute financial dominance, while your actual net worth plummets dangerously into the negative. You are actively destroying the present moment just to prove to the past that your future is going well. It is a psychological loop of pure, unadulterated madness. Your attention span is shattered. Your ability to engage in deep, uninterrupted thought is completely eroded. And this is exactly why you're stuck. You cannot build a business, you cannot acquire high-level skills, and you cannot architect a financial escape plan when 90% of your mental RAM is dedicated to managing a fictional public relations campaign for a nobody. The individuals who actually hold power know this. They know you are distracted. They know you are financially bleeding out to look rich. And the way they operate in the shadows, entirely disconnected from this game, is the ultimate weapon you have never been taught to use. Phase 5. The ghost architecture. There is a fundamental difference in the cognitive processing of someone who has quietly opted out of the digital circus. People who never post on social media think differently because they have reclaimed the single most valuable, highly targeted asset in the modern economy: uninterrupted focus. While the rest of the pack is frantically running on the backlit wheel, bleeding their daily energy to manage a synthetic public image, the ghost is building an empire in the dark. They understand that attention is a massive liability. Every single time you broadcast your moves, your purchases, or your location, you are inviting the entire world to audit your existence. You are essentially begging for permission to feel successful. The architects of real wealth do not ask for permission. They weaponize silence. When you stop feeding the algorithm, something terrifying and beautiful happens to your brain. The frantic, exhausting need to perform completely evaporates. You stop looking at a sunset or a plate of food and wondering how it will translate on a screen. You start making brutal, calculated financial decisions based entirely on the math rather than the anticipated reaction of people you haven't spoken to in a decade. You begin to realize a foundational truth of the elite. The most dangerous individual in the modern economy is the one who has completely detached their self-worth from the public's perception of their wealth. They don't buy the $80,000 luxury SUV to sit in gridlock traffic and feel marginally superior to the guy in the 10-year-old Honda. They buy assets that generate quiet, invisible cash flow. They are not interested in the shiny cheese hanging on the trap. They want to own the entire factory that manufactures the maze. Phase 6. The power of social irrelevance. The financial system absolutely despises the silent individual. Banks, lenders, and credit card companies cannot monetize a ghost. They rely entirely on your vanity. They desperately need you to feel that burning, impulsive urge to upgrade your lifestyle the exact second your coworker posts a picture from a European vacation. When you embrace social irrelevance, you permanently sever the emotional strings they use to manipulate your spending habits. You become totally immune to the manufactured panic of falling behind. The ultimate status symbol of the 21st century is not a verified badge or a designer logo. It is inaccessibility. Society has conditioned you to fear being forgotten. They trained you to believe that if you aren't constantly reminding the digital tribe that you exist, you will fade into obscurity. Let me give you the red pill. Obscurity is exactly where the real money is made. It is where you find the mental bandwidth to read the fine print, to study the markets, and to build the kind of equity that actually changes your bloodline. Stealth wealth is the ultimate exit strategy. True freedom doesn't look like a VIP table surrounded by bottle service and flashing cameras. True freedom is waking up on a random Tuesday morning, brewing a cheap cup of black coffee in a perfectly quiet kitchen, and knowing with absolute mathematical certainty that you don't owe a single second of your day to a boss, a bank, or an audience. You are completely untraceable. You have engineered a life where your net worth is nobody's business but your own. You no longer need to flex, because your reality is infinitely better than their hallucination. You have stepped out of the cage and left the lab rats fighting over digital crumbs. The transition will be deeply uncomfortable at first. When you go silent, people will automatically assume you are failing. Let them. Let them think you are broke. Let them think you lost your edge. Their underestimation is the greatest tactical advantage you will ever be handed. While they are busy financing their own psychological enslavement, you will be quietly buying back your time. The exit door is right in front of you. It doesn't require a master's degree, and it doesn't require a stroke of genius. It simply requires you to put the glass screen down, kill your digital avatar, and start operating in reality. If you want to stay in the cage, keep scrolling. Go watch another 30-second dopamine hit that you'll forget before you even put your phone in your pocket. But if you are ready to break the lock, hit the like button, subscribe, and join the ones who are finding the way out. If you made it to the very end, drop a comment saying Invisible Architect. The rest of the pack will have no idea what it means. They will just keep swiping. But we will know you are awake. My name is Daniel Rath, and I'll see you outside the maze.